Humble's new book, Things No One Else Can Teach Us, is out now. And I'm so excited to say that Humble the Poet joins us once again on Q. Hey, man.
How you doing, brother?
We were just talking about how we haven't seen each other since you did the live show in Ottawa.
Yeah, nothing was the same after that.
No, but that was like month 4 for me.
Yeah.
That was, and I think our both of our lives just kind of took weird directions after that.
Dramatically, yes.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the book. I really loved reading it. But first, I'm not going to have you on here without reading a poem.
Yeah, definitely. The cool part of this book is that there's an enter poem and an exit poem. The enter poem is kind of like the mindset of where most of us are dealing with situations, and the exit is talking about the same subject from a different perspective. Okay. So this poem is an exit poem for the idea that everything is temporary in life, and that can be both tragic and liberating. So this is the liberating side to that idea. You won't return like the sunrise, but I'll feel your warmth. What did I do to deserve the few moments that we had? I'm overwhelmed. When you brought me pain, you brought me rain, and a seed of wisdom came to sprout. Your voice vibrates with a half-life of infinity. Everything will be said forever, until there's no one left to hear it, and then it won't matter. In a temporary world, it matters that you shared your temporary time with me. I'll see you in forever.
You've been thinking a lot about life and death?
Definitely. It's when things get overwhelming, remembering that this is literally a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things just kind of takes a lot of the tension and the anxiety down.
It can also make you anxious, right? Because you start lying in bed going, my God, what if this all ends tomorrow and I didn't get to do the things I wanted to do?
I think so, but I think I've accomplished a lot of things I've wanted to do to realize that even the satisfaction that comes with those is about 5 hours. So chasing these giant milestones to have a 5-hour moment of euphoria, I'm okay if we got to end that a little bit early.
I'd love to talk more about that, but first let's talk a little bit about the book. When I first picked it up, I thought it was going to be a straight memoir, and then as I started reading it, I was like, is this like a self-help thing? And then I realized that, A, you're incredibly critical of self-professed self-help kind of folks, right? And it's not necessarily a memoir. So I'm just going to ask you, when you run into people on the plane and they say, what are you working on? And you got to describe the book, what do you say?
So my first book on Learn was me sharing all this new wisdom I acquired, and the overall arching idea was you have to let go to gain more. So pretty much I was sharing things that I figured out. This time I realized that we can learn from every single thing we've ever experienced. So I just started listing experiences I had and went through the process of figuring out what I learned from that and what value I took from it, and like what nuggets of gold and what silver lining I was able to discover in it. So I didn't write what I figured out here, I wrote to figure it out. So I think that's what the big thing here was, and things no one else can teach us is the idea that, we can turn our most challenging moments into something wonderful as long as we have the tools. And most of the times we don't have the tools.
Right.
So this is me sharing some of the tools that I figured out along the way.
I like that you were a little critical, and I'm using that word gently.
Yeah.
But I like that you were a little critical of so-called like self-help gurus and people who are going to try to sell you these things. I felt like this was an honest response to that.
Yeah, I think it's probably more so a response to people thinking I'm a self-help guru. That was never a goal of mine. I'm a rapper. I'm trying to make music and enjoy myself. And then along the way, when my studio guys stopped picking up the phone, I had to keep writing. So I ended up writing a book. And people connected with it and they resonated with it. And that probably had a lot to do with my experiences as an elementary school teacher, being able to take ideas and make them a lot more digestible. And I think from that point, when people started looking at me as a self-help guru on the level of, oh, you must not have any problems. Oh, you're so calm all the time. And me kind of being like, no, I have the exact same problems and deal with the same trash that everybody else deal with. And my goal is just to share my journey so other people can take time to explore their own.
I mean, like you mentioned, you're not Eckhart Tolle here. You're a rapper, and I'm not surprised because take a listen to this.
Top dollar with the gold fleet collar, dipping in my blue Impala. Yeah, it's like forward to the 5, to the 6, and to the 7. I once was told that all dogs go to heaven. Well, how you been, where you been, and what it look like.
That is Snoop Dogg. I think then Snoop Doggy Dogg, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, Snoop Doggy Dogg with Still a G Thing from Snoop's third album.
The game cannot be told; it can only be sold.
What does that mean to you?
Well, that's pretty much the umbrella idea of this book. Me trying to figure out what that actually meant, and wondering why can't I just be told the game? And you realize that most of life experiences, you have to experience it and learn the hard way. Somebody can tell you the stove is hot, but until you touch it, you're not going to really believe or know or fully understand the idea of what it means that it's hot. And, that's what that album title means to me. And I started realizing that as I went through this process, because as an aspiring anything, we always want to skip steps. We want to skip shades in the gradient. We want to make it all the way to the end. And you can't. You literally have to, lay the path one brick at a time. And every single brick has to be earned. And the tuition you pay is all the life lessons and sacrifices that you have to make.
It's funny because I found myself in situations where I knew I was going to be up against something, and I read 9 different essays and books about how to deal with it. And I was like, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah.
There's no substitution for actually going through something hard, whether it be a death, whether it be a breakup, whether it be a new job, whether it be a leaving an old job. You can prepare all you want, but I find it stuff like this, just hearing people's own stories and hearing people go, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, and it's going to suck, and it's okay that it sucks. I think we were gifted the magic of creating art and creativity as a trade-off to the fact that we're going to experience a lot of sucky experiences in life. And ever since we've been painting on caves and sharing our stories and telling people to watch out for that bear, watch out for that lion, I think it's been a really important human tradition to share your story to help other people figure out their own.
So let's talk about some of those stories, both joyful and sucky. Take a listen to this.
I'm expressing with my full capabilities, and now I'm living in correctional facilities. Cause some don't agree with how I do this. I get straight and meditate like a Buddhist. I'm dropping flavor, my behavior is hereditary, but my technique is very necessary. Blame it on Ice Cube, because he said it gets funky when you got a subject and a predicate.
From the NWA album Straight Outta Compton, that is Express Yourself, which, by the way, I believe, Humble, is the only song we can play on the radio.
Possibly. That's why I'm using words like sucky, because I'm also trying to watch my language today. I've been used to doing a lot of podcasts where you can swear, and all of a sudden I'm just like, all right, I just ran it by the producer real quick, and he's like, yeah, no, let's keep it clean.
This is the CBC, baby.
This is the CBC.
Talk to me a little bit about how that was your entry point to hip hop.
On my street, there was, I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and there was a kid on my street who was probably 10 and 11, and he had all the NWA tapes. And at that point in my house, nobody was really allowed to listen to any music, or my sisters were listening to like New Kids on the Block or whatever else was on Much Music at the time. And he had these tapes, and I pressed play, and it's just like everything was different after that. I had never heard hip hop at that point. I had never, outside of the pop hip hop, I had never heard swearing. I had, there's skits about police brutality on there. There's some hyper realism that I've never heard a diss track. All of these things existed on these NWA albums. And, these guys had half naked women and machine guns on their covers. And it was just, I remember a complete shock of a world I had never seen before. And it opened me up to hip hop. And as time went on, I realized that hip hop, had multiple rivers leading into the same ocean. And then you start hearing KRS-One, and then a couple of years go by, and then I discovered Outkast, which was a really big game changer for me as well. And just realizing that this was a way to tell people for modern storytelling, and it was probably, and still is, in my opinion, the most evolved form of literary art.
What does it give you? What is writing? Because you write books like this, you write poems still. What is writing hip hop? What does writing rhymes do for you in terms of for your storytelling?
Yeah, I think, even going back to my teacher days, and when you had, 2 young boys getting in a fight, a lot of it had to do with their inability to communicate in any other way or deal with it. And it goes back to tools. And I think for most people who are underrepresented, we consider them underrepresented voices, but they also don't have the tools to express themselves. And hip hop is kind of like the soccer of art, because you don't need any expensive equipment. You don't need any type of formal training. All you need is your story and a little bit of rhythm, and we all come with a heartbeat. So I think from that perspective, it was easily accessible. There were no rules to it. You just had to get busy. And I think for me, it immediately connects because on a level of authenticity and rawness and honesty. I think, growing up watching a lot of very vanilla, clean-cut Disney Channel type TV shows, and then to have this injection of the rawness, it wakes you up. And then once it wakes you up, you can't go back to sleep.
So you end up becoming an elementary school teacher. How long did you do that for?
I did that for about 6 years.
6 years in Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto District School Board.
Right on.
Yeah.
You would have had the day off today.
No.
No, they went back. You're right.
They went back.
They
yeah.
went back.
They went back.
You would have had your fingers crossed anyway.
I would have definitely had my fingers crossed.
But at the same time, you're teaching elementary school. You're writing. You're writing hip hop. You're writing poetry. You're maybe a little frustrated. Maybe you see a path where that is perhaps not as safe. That they're not going to give you the stability that a pension and a paycheck from elementary school would. I think a lot of us feel that way. A lot of people feel that way listening to this right now. And they imagine about doing what you did, which was stopping and taking a risky path away from the salary, away from the pension to do your own thing. Can you tell me a little bit about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to, the fear of losing the safety and security of a job, it's also the approval of your family. I got 2 overachieving sisters, and I still don't know what they do for a living, but it's consulting or something in the corporate world.
If someone tells me they consult, I just go, oh, okay, and I just let them pick up the bill.
Yeah, perfect way to describe it. Just say, okay, let them pick up the bill. And they both went to U of T, and then I went to York.
Right.
So then my father is a real big stickler in education. So he was already like, oh, you're going to York. That's not even a real school in comparison to U of T. And I didn't even know who's teaching them this stuff. I was like, you came here in the 70s. How do you know about these schools? But there was already this kind of a little bit of an underlining, I was selling myself short. I could have, I should have been a doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's the one job that all us immigrant kids have to do. And so there was that additional layer, and I know a lot of people listening hear that too, is living up to your family's expectations.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of that. And for me, it was working as a teacher and like going to the Drake Hotel and going to, their spoken word amateur nights. They used to have them on Saturdays back then. And just having fun, just using it as an excuse to meet women, using an excuse to be social, not knowing what adults did after work because I didn't have homework anymore. And I realized it just kind of took a life of its own. It really was. I wasn't being pushed into it. I was being pulled towards it. And I think that was the first time I ever experienced something like that in my life. And
but the decision to leave.
Well, the decision to leave, as you'll probably read in the book, it wasn't. I didn't make this brave, inspirational decision to like pull the trigger or leave the comfort of my day job. The first person that promised me a way out, I just took it without even, really looking into their promises. And their promise ended up not being fulfilled. They said we had a record deal coming in, so I quit my job and I moved into a property I had, a rental property, and I was like making music, waiting for this deal to come in and the money to come in, and it never did. And at that point is when I had to make the decision to go back with my tail between my legs or stick it out. And I think that's when I made the decision that I can't be anything else but this. I wasn't chasing a passion. I was living an obsession at that point. And, that started my journey. And that was about, a solid 4 or 5 years of being the struggling artist to figure this all out.
Are you familiar with the term confirmation bias?
Yeah.
So I think when you hear these kind of stories about I quit my job and it all, you only really hear from the people who it worked out for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I feel like in this book, Things No One Else Can Teach Us, it's sort of a response to that. Because I feel like you're also talking to people. I think there's a lot of advice out there, both online and in books, that say stuff like, if you're not happy with what you're doing, quit your job and find your way.
Yeah.
I like how pragmatic you were about this.
Yes.
You actually discuss the realities of what it means to take that kind of risk. That's something very rare. Tell me a little bit about that decision.
Well, so when it took me about a year of denial and living off of credit cards and line of credit to realize that no money was coming in from this record deal, and the people that promised it to me had all disappeared. So now I got bills, mortgage payments, a lot of debt, not only debt to the bank, debt to my friends, people I actually cared about, and I had no way to make any money. And I started reading the Tumblr quotes. I started reading all the inspirational stuff and listening to the, J.K. Rowling commencement speeches where she talks about rock bottom being the foundation that she built herself upon. And to me, none of it sounded practical. I was just like, how do I even know when I hit rock bottom? Like, how am I supposed to build upon something when I don't know? Every day gets worse and worse.
I'm 65 grand in debt.
Yeah, I was 80 grand in debt.
80 grand in debt. Is that rock bottom? Because it feels like it to me.
Because it feels like I'm going to be in more debt next month.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think at that point, there wasn't this inspirational moment or moment of catharsis. There was time had to go by. I had to start taking a lot of personal responsibility, and I had to actively seek pragmatic advice and ways to do it. And I mean, the short story long is anything you stick with will start to work out. You don't have to adjust your goals. You have to adjust your strategies as you go. But if you stick with something and you stay consistent, in the long run, it will work out. For me, to get out of that debt, it took me 5 years. Nothing happened overnight for me. And to get to a point where I could pay my bills as an artist, that probably took another 3-4 years after that. So this was never an easy task. And I always tell people, stick with it. Especially if doing the work is fun and you enjoy this journey. Like if you can enjoy the rainbow and not think about the pot of gold, then you're a very lucky person.
I mean, that's the dream. But even when things do work out, they take on added baggage. Take a listen to this.
Feel the fire river flow, heart in your veins, we boggy go. Feel the fire river flow, heart in your veins, we boggy go. Go, go boggy, boggy. Go, go boggy, boggy. Go, go boggy, boggy. Throw your hands up, mop and jump in. Go, go boggy, boggy. Go.
My guest is Humble the Poet. He has a new book called Things No One Else Can Teach Us. That is his 2010 gem, Buggy Music. There's the success. There's what you dreamt of when you were an elementary school teacher, right? So it doesn't give you said, what did you say earlier that I really loved? You said when you achieve a goal, you get about 5 hours of joy from it.
Yeah.
So that right there, you write about this in the book. That song is everything you wanted to happen when you were an elementary school teacher. And it still didn't fill all the holes, right?
Yeah, I think, the invention of the ship was the invention of the shipwreck. And, you get a hit single and there's going to be some challenges that come with that. I lost friends over that song because that song was so successful. They just decided I was a sellout. I became a target because of that song. I made a couple comments in that song that were interpreted as heavily political, and I almost got banned from entering India. I almost got put on watch lists. Then people within my community thought I was doing the opposite. So I had, and thank God this was before Twitter blew up. But I was getting it from all sides, and there was no one there. There was no mentor, no one there to kind of explain to me how this goes. And it was a really uncomfortable situation. And I actually rejected trying to make any type of hit music after that for that purpose. I didn't like the attention that came with it. I didn't like the pressure that came with it. It didn't work out. It didn't work out the way I thought it would, even though it was working out. And I think that's the big thing. We want $1 million, but we don't know. We can't predict what it's going to feel like to get that $1 million, or, we want that fairy tale wedding, but we don't know what it's actually going to feel like once we have it.
So what did you learn? Like, what did you learn when you find out that you spent 10, 15 years trying to achieve an impossible goal? You get it. You win the lottery. And not to say that it didn't take incredible hard work, but the chances of having a hit song are not unlike the chances of winning the lottery. When it doesn't fill that, not to be a bummer here, but when it doesn't fill that hole, what do you learn going forward?
I think, at that point you got two choices. You can chase the next thing and try to fill the hole, or you can start to pay attention to the hole and then kind of realize that, hey, maybe I come with this hole and I can spend all my time trying to fill it with attention, money, women, different substances, different accolades and awards or what have you. I can keep doing that, realizing that it's just a bottomless pit, or I can learn to live a life with the hole, or I can, a little comic I saw that said, we all have this hole within us and we try to fill it with different things. And then one character was like, I just like running and hearing the whistle that it makes.
I like that a lot.
And I think it's just making peace with, who we are and how we're created. And I read a Jim Carrey article recently, and he said that too. He goes, you're trying to heal the pain, but that's not how it works. He goes, you take the pain and you create something that's never existed with it, and that's art. And I'm realizing that now. I realize this pain is a gift to me, for me to create and for me to help do my contribution to help push us as a people forward.
You write in the book pretty honestly about something that surprised me a little bit, which is your relationship with social media. And maybe it's just because I work on public radio, which I consider to be a pretty old media sort of thing, that I assume that, I see you as such an online presence, on Instagram and Twitter. Not to mention your association with Lily Singh, an old friend of yours, who's now on NBC, but blew up on YouTube in a way that we'll never see again.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear you write something that was critical of your relationship with social media, and to see that you don't really use it that much anymore. Talk to me about writing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we thought about who we are as people, the average person, 300 years ago, the average person did not have a platform to express their opinion, nor did they ever think they were allowed to have an opinion. Like us, as people, we've been thrusted into the social media world, and now we're sharing so much, and it's kind of turned into a currency, and none of us know what we're doing, and it happened so quickly. It happened in the last 10 years, and I think for me, I realized at some moment, I was like, yo, why am I turning to social media all the time when I used to turn to creativity, I used to turn to art, I used to ride my bike, I used to do all this other stuff. And I realized because it was very quick and convenient, it gives me specifically an illusion of connecting with other people. And as I said, I was just throwing stuff in a bottomless pit, and it was just a hungry, hungry monster. Kind of felt like, well, the truth is we do kind of live in this modernized world of Greek gods where we have all these algorithms that we have to appease. You got to feed the YouTube algorithm. You got to feed the Amazon algorithm. You got to feed the Apple Music algorithm. You got to feed them. And if you don't feed them, then they're not going to let people know who you are anymore. And it's endless. You can drop 5 videos a day and that still won't be enough. And I think I caught myself in that rat race. And I saw the toll it was taking on my mental health. I saw the toll it was taking on my physical health, whether it's just the way my neck keeps creeping down when I'm looking at my phone, the amount of sitting I'm doing for absolutely no reason, because I keep checking Twitter on my computer. And I just made a decision to just adjust my habits and spend much less time on it. And I'm fortunate because even now on my social media, I post more of my writing than anything else. I'm not posting a lot of pictures of myself. I don't have to invade my own privacy anymore to have a connection with the audience that I have. And I think I'm trying to find that healthier, balanced, and sustainable way of staying on.
I mean, that's I've been thinking about that a lot, and I mean everything I'm about to say very respectfully. But hearing you write this, reading this chapter of the book, and then thinking about Lily. And I don't expect you to speak for Lily, but Lily, who also needed to take a break from YouTube, needed to take a break from her online presence because it gave her so much anxiety. There was all kinds of mental health issues around that. Like, how do you reconcile? Again, respectfully, how do you reconcile achieving success from a medium that you're starting to realize might be harmful?
I think it's, I think the thing is, and I realize this as a teacher. When you work with a student and you try to teach them long division and they don't get it, the teacher thinks, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with my approach? They don't think something's wrong with the student, which is a great mindset and teachers should have. The problem is that mindset ends up getting exploited. When you start to give teachers, let's say from the administrative or from the superintendent, they start giving extra work to the teachers. And it gets put in the teacher's head, if I can't finish all this work, then something must be wrong with me. Not that I'm getting an unrealistic workload. I remember when you're having a classroom, 35 kids and 28 coat hooks, and thinking something's wrong with the way I'm setting up my classroom if everyone doesn't have a place to hang up their hooks. But really, I should have been saying something's wrong with my classroom, or something's wrong with the funding, or something's wrong with the way things are set up. And that's the same thing with social media. So someone like Lily, who was a full-time creator on YouTube, she was creating content and had certain number of audience members participating and engaging with her work. Then all of a sudden, YouTube changes its environment and its algorithm. It no longer puts the focus on the creator. In the beginning, you like a Lily Singh video, you like CBCQ, you like something else, you subscribe, and you'll continually get their content, and you'll get recommended content from them. Then YouTube changed their culture, and it was no longer about the creator, it was about the creation. So now, if we're having a conversation about heartbreak, the next video that's going to get recommended is another video about heartbreak, not another video from CBCQ.
From CBCQ, yeah, right.
And what that did is that had creators constantly on the chase now. Well, what is the new trending topic? What is the next thing? It's no longer about sharing themselves with their audience. It's about playing catch up with the audience. And I think Lily realized that very quickly and very wisely took a break and stepped back. And it's kind of like if you're kicking a soccer ball and it goes out of control, some people just keep chasing it. Other people put their foot on it, stop, look around. And I feel like the break that she took, because I was there was no break. There was a break from hitting upload. There was no break from work. She didn't go on I think she didn't go on any unscheduled vacations. She didn't do anything to get, there was a stop, look around, let's figure out what's happening. There was also a lot of stuff in the pipes, this NBC show and stuff like that. So I think it was a much needed moment of paying attention. And I also think she realized her cultural impact. By her doing it, this will allow other people to ask the same questions. Like, wait, the people I'm chasing after or looking up to are struggling with this. Maybe I should look at it too.
You might even say we have labor laws for a reason.
Yeah, and there aren't labor laws in the YouTube space, right?
No,
It's
no.
the wild, wild west. So it took these creators and many of them, and I commend them for it. Is building that self awareness where they're like, hey, this is a never ending journey. I need to figure out what's important to me. And right now, maybe it's oh, my views went down. Maybe it's not my fault. Maybe it really was a little adjustment in the code and the algorithm, and now people don't know my videos exist anymore, and that's okay because that's out of my control.
Right. Yeah. And Lily, of course, the new Johnny Carson
The new Johnny Carson, yeah.
on NBC. You must be very proud.
Super proud. I just got back a couple of days ago from LA, and I was so fortunate to attend a bunch of tapings and see all the workings behind the scenes, and it's a crazy time. It's really cool.
We're proud of her here in Canada, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
In your book, I want to close like this. In your book, before we get another poem, you put a lot of yourself out there. Things that a lot of people would find hard to talk about. Humble. In particular, I was affected by your essay or the chapter about your relationship with faith, with God, about violence, about sex. These are important things to share, but like we were just talking with YouTube, they can come with a cost.
Yeah.
Giving this much of yourself. So how are you feeling now that this is all out and you're starting to share all this?
I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen. While I wrote it, the internal dialogue was don't share this. And I wasn't even thinking in terms of the public. I spend a lot of time in the States. I'm not as popular in the States. And then I came back, I walked around the streets for Nuit Blanche, and the amount of people that stop me and talk to me and take pictures, there's a reminder like, oh crap, like people know who I am, which is flattering, but it's also scary because you kind of think to yourself, will I not be able to walk around Nuit Blanche next year, or am I not allowed to share my stories as the way I want to share them? And then also I'm like, what's my mom going to think when I'm talking about her brothers, or what's my cousin going to think I'm talking about their dad, or, or what are my sisters going to think I'm talking about our parents in the struggle, and maybe I got a story wrong, or maybe what have you. And I couldn't afford to run things by them because that would have created a lot of doubt for me, and I would have probably just chickened out. Yeah. So, my rule was we're going to decide the night before what story we're going to write about, and then we're just going to write it, and we're going to figure out what needs to be figured out from it while we write it, and there's no turning back. And I think it was a real challenge. It was writing this stuff out every so often, be like, I got to stop. I can't do this. This is going to make me look a certain way. But then realizing then what's the point of doing any of this? As I said, like we all have a responsibility to share our story, to move things forward. And now, because of entertainment, because of social media, because of just the way things are structured, especially creativity. Now, there's a lot of money behind it. People think that they have to get co-signed or earn the right to share the story, like that they don't deserve to share the story because they weren't picked up by a major publisher, or they don't have a big channel online. But the truth is, no, we all have to do it. And even if 3 people hear your story, you're benefiting that. So I looked at it from that perspective, and I wrote it knowing that, look, everything I'm writing about is incomplete. My life is a work of art just like yours is, and it's not going to be done till we're done. And it's a work in progress. And the only thing I can do is, shed my fears and my biases and my insecurities and spill them on the page, hoping it empowers others to do the same so we can move forward.
I mean, that's the reason I do the job. This job I say is presumably about art, because that's supposed to be what it's about. Yeah. But the one thing I took from your book is just that, like the only way we can get better as a people is if we just hear each other's stories, not lessons. We just hear each other's stories.
And that's what, one of my favorite lines from Jay-Z's last album, you can't heal what you don't reveal, And I think for me, just because I travel a lot and, growing up in Rexdale and all the alpha male BS I was smothered in, therapy was never something that was discussed. And the moment I realized that would be of value to me, I'm just like, oh crap, I don't even live in one place for more than 2 weeks. I don't know if I can develop a long-term relationship with a therapist. So I was like, but I can write. Let me just write it out. And that's usually what it is. It's sharing your story and somebody helping you take all that tangled yarn and ball it up nicely into organized colors. And I think for me, I can write it out and figure that stuff out. So And this was, I wrote twice the amount in this book. There's a whole bunch of stories that just got left on the cutting room floor.
Well, for the next one.
Yeah, hopefully.
That was my guest, Humble the Poet. His new book is called Things No One Else Can Teach Us, and it's out now.